Hello there, good evening, and welcome on this Saturday evening to Ed Live. Of course, this week we want to change things up a little, and we're going to focus. As you're aware, yesterday, Friday, the People's Progressive Party launched its manifesto. Well, I should say excerpts from the manifesto. It was more or less a media launch, outlining in a broad sense the areas of the manifesto and what the next PPPC government after the March 2nd, 2020 elections will focus on. So what I want to do tonight, because I'm going to continue this probably for the next 4 to 5 weeks or so, is to touch generally on the areas outlined in the draft, in the excerpts of the manifesto, or some of the areas that the next PPPC government intends to focus on. And I have a copy here with me this evening that I will be reading from, and we will have a discussion on. The fact of the matter is, before I get into our discussion, is that we have to start the entire discussion and the entire campaign leading up to the March 2nd, 2020 elections on the basis of track record. And when one looks at the track record of the People's Progressive Party for 23 years in office, you would recognize that the PPP has always and will continue to be a political party that is staying true to its commitment to the people. I don't want to talk about promise. I think the Granger, AP, and UAFC cabal would have left a bad taste in the mouths of Guyanese when it comes to the word promise. So I want to focus, I want to term this not as promise, but as commitments. And those of you who would have had an opportunity to look at the launching of the excerpts of the manifesto yesterday would have heard Dr. Irfan Ali, our presidential candidate, speaking candidly and making a social compact with the people of this country that he intends to deliver on every single thing that is outlined in our plan for prosperity, as it is referred to. So, there are a number of areas that Dr. Ali, as well as the opposition leader and General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party, Dr. Jagdios, focused on yesterday. So I want to, share with you what are these areas and how the next PPPC government intends to implement whatever is in this plan for prosperity, our commitment to the people of Guyana. It focused on areas like more jobs, focus on reducing crime, on better education, reduction of the cost of living, which is a big thing for people. I talk with people on a daily basis, and most of them complain about one major thing. They complain about the other issues, but one of the major issues for them is that of cost of living. Not being able to make ends meet, not being able to provide a life for their family in the way they would like to, not being able to own a home by themselves, not being able to own a vehicle, not being able to have a saving. So cost of living has been a major issue. With regards to value-added tax as well and the entire taxation system, the next PPPC government has a plan that will see more money in the pockets of people. And one would recall that the Granger administration, the Granger, the AP and UAFC campaigned on a good life for the people of this country. And I know all of you, except those in their little circle, in the Granger circle, that little cabal, every other Guyanese would term what Granger promised as a good lie. So I want to get right into the discussion. I don't want to focus too much tonight on the destruction of our country over the last 4 years as a result of the misplaced policies of the Granger administration. So I want to focus mainly on what we intend to do as the next PPPC government. And excuse me. I want to start with the very first one, which has to do with creating jobs. And you would have heard time and again both the presidential candidate, Dr. Ali, and the leader of the opposition would have spoken about how we intend, the next PPPC government intends to create 50,000 jobs over a 5-year period, at 10,000 jobs per year. In previous programs, I would have gone through how these jobs can be created. In the construction sector, in the information communication technology sector, in the services sector, in the manufacturing sector, and if I didn't mention the construction sector, if we were to focus on the people who would have lost their jobs, over 30,000, we had another close to 400 added from Troy Resources. We are seeing Barama is saying that it is sending home some workers as a result of downscaling of the operation. Then we have Jordan himself talking about downsizing the public sector between 15 to 20,000. So already we surpassed 50,000 jobs that we can recreate. So the figures of 50,000 jobs is very, very moderate. But I want to tell you a little bit of how the PPP intends to do that. I want to talk about our housing drive, and the booming construction that will create and how it will create jobs. Because the 50,000 jobs, Dr. Ali and Dr. Jagdeo both spoke also about 50,000 house lots over a 5-year period. So you're talking about a booming construction. And if you were to look at, let's take 20,000 house lots out of the 50,000. Each building that is being constructed, and the reason why I'm taking 20, because you might have the same contractor with the same crew, maybe get 2 or 3 houses to build out of that 50,000 house lots that are allotted to Guyanese. And let's say 20,000. If you're to take 20,000 house lots, and each house is being constructed has a 5-man crew, we already surpassed, that's 100,000 jobs. That's 100,000 jobs. We also have to look at expanding our infrastructure in terms of roads, in terms of bridges, a whole host of infrastructural works where jobs will be created. We have to look at how we can make medical or health services exportable, so to speak, and create jobs. We have to look at the education sector to train more teachers, to get more qualified teachers into the school system, to create programs for those who would have not completed school, to equip them for jobs, to focus, and I haven't spoken about oil and gas as yet, where there will be opportunities, if not directly in the oil and gas sector, there will be opportunities as a result of spin-off benefits. The problem that we have now, we have a situation where the Granger Cabal would have signed contracts and that doesn't really benefit Guyanese. We have a situation where they have failed to put a local content policy in place, because a local content policy is what will guarantee Guyanese jobs and other opportunities in the sector. So if our manufacturing sector, those who are involved in industrial manufacturing, if our hospitality sector, those who are involved in providing accommodation, those who are involved in the transportation sector, those who are involved in the culinary area, those are opportunities if they can be created through a local content policy which will tie oil companies to utilize local services. Then we're talking about more jobs. We're talking about using information communication technology to create jobs. So I think we have gone past probably about 150 or 200,000 jobs, but we're looking at our promise, our commitment to you is 50,000 jobs in the first 5 years. So the 50,000 jobs. So consistent with the objective of providing 50,000 new jobs and enhancing the well-being of all Guyanese, the following are some of the policies and measures which the next PPPC government will implement. So So let us deal with those. I have a list here, and I want to share with you, which would naturally fit into our manifesto and would be interlinked with some of the other areas of our commitments to you. So 1, the intention is to reduce the bureaucracy, processing time for applications and other paperwork required for doing business. Once you can reduce the time for doing business and that bureaucracy, then more investors will come in. More locals who have monies will come in and invest. When they invest, they create jobs. So restore zero-rated VAT for machinery and equipment for agriculture, mining, and forestry. The Granger Cabal, after promising to reduce VAT, reduced the VAT by 2%. But what they're not telling you is that they expanded or the expanded catchment in the tax net as with regards to VAT, where previously under the PPP, there was no VAT on machinery and equipment that are used in the mining, the forestry, and the agriculture sector. So persons were able to pay a lower price, so to speak, for machinery and equipment to expand their mining operations, to expand their forestry operations, to expand their agricultural operations, whether it be rice, whether it be cash crops, whether it be poultry, whatever they're doing. The next PPPC government intends to restore the zero-rated or to reverse these draconian and these anti-poor actions of the coalition. Provide more incentives for small businesses and young entrepreneurs, including microcredit facilities. Many of you will recall the WOW program, the Women of Worth initiative, where under the People's Progressive Party, billions of dollars were set aside to ensure that single mothers can access a loan with little or no interest to start their own business, where they were being provided with guidance, etc., so that their businesses can flourish. We haven't heard about the Women of Worth in the last 4 years. So opportunities will be created, incentives will be created to stimulate business, to ensure that more young Guyanese, more single parents can have access to financing to start their own businesses. Reverse the increased cost of licenses and permits for doing business. And I can tell you, the process of getting a license or the cost that is attached to it is extremely disheartening and is turning away a lot of people who want to start maybe a small business. You know, you want to set up a little shop, you want to get your license, you want to follow the law, but the system that is in place, the draconian system, where you go through a lot of bureaucracies and you pay a lot of money in order to get your documents. So a man who maybe have $100,000 want to invest to start a little business, he has to take maybe 30% of that to pay for licenses and etc. So that is something that we intend to reverse. Reverse increased land rents and drainage and irrigation charges. We know what is happening to our brothers and sisters in Berbice, those farmers who are being forced by the MMA ADA, which is now being politicized, to pay higher rents for the land, to pay more for drainage and irrigation. Drainage and irrigation through the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority should be a service that is provided by the state to the people of this country. You shouldn't be paying for that. You pay taxes already. It is your money, your monies that are being used to finance the NDIA and all the other bodies that are responsible for ensuring that there is proper drainage and irrigation, whether in the farming communities, whether at the level of your communities, whether at the level of the city. So we intend to deal with that. Reverse of VAT on exports. Reverse VAT on building materials, which is killing the construction sector. These are the kinds of misplaced policies and programs and initiatives that the coalition would have undertaken with the sole intention of taxing the population into prosperity. So the government wants to grow, they want to spend money lavishly, many times on unnecessary things. They cannot attract the kind of investment. They cannot create the kind of programs and initiatives and projects that will bring back money into the country. They cannot create an environment that businesses will thrive, where they will employ more people and their tax base, their tax contribution will increase. So they do blanket taxation, if there is such a term in the tax world. I'm not too familiar with the terms that are used in taxation. But they do blanket where they tax everybody and everything. Remove VAT on data and establish online training programs across the country. Promote skills training by increasing technical and vocational training and apprenticeship schemes. Partner with private sector companies and institutions to provide skills training in key areas. Incentivize employers so as to promote youth employment. Provide greater support to vulnerable groups, including the elderly and people living with disabilities. Simplify the tax system. Offer attractive tax incentives for business development. Improve access to financing for investment. By doing all of what I mentioned there, it will ensure that there is a growth in business, there is the establishment of new businesses, there is more investment coming into the country, foreign investment, local investment, which will all lead to creating jobs. Linked to all of that is the fact that we intend to rescue our productive sectors. We know the figures, we know the facts. Mining is down. Forestry, and we see, and I spoke about this I think last week, where the guys in Ichuni area, their complaints. So forestry is down. Rice is down. The Granger cabal destroyed the sugar industry. The other crops, people are facing difficulty. Look at our brothers and sisters in the Maikoni, Mahaika area and West Babis after that high tide. Their crops are inundated, underwater. They have lost millions of dollars if you put them together. And not a single word from the coalition, not even a visit. We know what is happening in the manufacturing sector. We know what is happening in the cattle and livestock sector, where we are facing, recently we faced a major shortage in chicken. We know what is happening in the fisheries sector. We lost a major market, a US market, as a result of the failure of the Granger cabal to ensure that the proper systems are in place so that we can meet the standards required by the US and other countries for our exports. So if we are to focus on issues like tourism, boosting our tourism product, and Dr. Ali, many of you would know that Dr. Ali has been a key player, has been the man who, he was the man who led the whole initiative of Discover Guyana, and that was growing, where our ecotourism product was catching on, so to speak, on the international market, where people wanted to come to Guyana to experience our flora and fauna. They want to experience our rainforest. He was key behind that. So when you look at all of this and you put them together, you will see that we'll be able to create the kind of jobs necessary for our people. You know, this evening, and I just want to share a little story with you. This evening, I was driving along and I stopped at one of the traffic lights. And I saw a young man, maybe 19. He's begging for help. So I spoke with him. I said, but, you know, you can't get a job. Why are you out here asking for money? And his story is extremely sad. He came from the Sophia area. He said to me, he said, brother, if I tell you the truth, I've been searching for a job for the longest while. My mom is a single parent. I tried every possible thing to get a job. I tried construction, I tried at the stores, I tried all over. And people keep telling me, you know, business bad, things rough. We are really hiring. Right now we downsizing. We ain't taking on nobody else. That is what our people are facing daily. And the People's Progressive Party has a plan to ensure that we create employment for our people and that we create incentives for businesses, for the agriculture sector, for the manufacturing sector, so that they can grow and expand and employ more people. I will leave the issues of, and like I said, I'm speaking generally tonight, where I'm going to try to brush through all the areas of our, the broad areas of our manifesto. And as we go along during the course of maybe the next month or two, we're going to get into specific areas. So I'm going to start dedicating each heading to a program where we will have a discussion, in-depth discussion as to what we intend to do with regards to specific areas. Because all of what we have in our manifesto are targeted, and one of the things that I need you to know is that all of it that are listed in the manifesto, we will achieve. They're achievable and they were costed. So the People's Progressive Party is aware of the cost that will be involved in creating opportunities for businesses, in boosting the forestry sector or the agriculture sector or the mining sector, to reopen the sugar estates, to boost the cattle and livestock industry, the fisheries, the manufacturing, the tourism, etc., etc. So every single area was properly thought out. The technical work was done. There was proper technical study and analysis, and costing was placed to every single item in our manifesto. So I'm going to come back to the oil and gas as we go along, but I want to talk about a couple of other areas, and then I'll open the line to take a few calls from you to hear from you in terms of your views with regards to the manifesto. So I want to move to an area, and many of us know what happened during the presidency of Mr. Donald Ramutar, where we had a minority government, and the actions of the coalition, the very coalition who come to you now to say that we love you so much and we're going to create opportunities for you, where today all Guyanese would have been paying less for electricity. Cheaper energy and more reliable energy, especially electricity, would have been a reality today, where our people would have been benefiting. Rather than paying the exorbitant bills that you're paying to GPL, you would have been paying way less as a result of one major transformational project, being the Amila Falls hydropower project. And we know the coalition, while in opposition, voted against that project. They couldn't justify it. It was unjustifiable. But because they wanted to cripple the PPPC government, using a one-seat majority, which automatically they got some sort of selective amnesia, and they forgot that 33 was the majority which they had combined in the parliament at that time. So what we intend to do, the People's Progressive Party is committed to implementing the following policy measures under the area of cheaper and more reliable electricity. Complete the Amila Falls hydropower project, moving towards clean, reliable, and affordable power supply. That's a major project. We could have seen a boom in our manufacturing sector, in our industries, because one of the major problems that industries and manufacturers complain about is that of cheap and reliable energy. That has been the major concern, time and again, coming from almost every single manufacturer, every single person who operate in the major industries in our country. So the intention here is to ensure that the Amila Falls is completed, so that we can benefit as a nation from cheaper and more reliable electricity. Produce in excess of 200 megawatts in the interim from natural gas. Why? Because the Amila Falls hydropower project will take some time to come to fruition in terms of construction, etc., etc. We will use natural gas to create in excess of 200 megawatts of power, so that Guyanese can benefit from at least reliable and stable electricity, and all the power outages, as we call them, blackouts, There is a plan to eliminate those. We will invest in solar and wind systems for off-grid areas. So like interior areas, the far-flung areas where you cannot be connected to the national grid. Solar and the wind system will be utilized to ensure that you too benefit from reliable electricity. The solar program had started under the Hinterland Electrification Program, and we know what happened. Granger took a whole host of the solar panels that were bought for the interior locations and placed it on State House. I can't recall it, but hundreds of them that you would have placed on State House that were supposed to benefit our poor Amerindian brothers and sisters in the hinterland locations who cannot be connected to the national grid. We will also expand the hinterland electrification program, which will see more solar panels, which will see smaller hydros and so on coming on board. Replace and upgrade solar panels in the hinterland, which is part of the expansion and the modification and the modernization of the hinterland electrification program. We will take urgent action to improve and upgrade the national grid. We have a major problem with transmission and distribution. A lot of electricity is being lost through theft, through poor maintenance of transmission lines, etc., etc. And we intend to deal with those. And like I mentioned, the development of smaller or microgrids for large hinterland villages. So our plan when it comes to cheaper and more reliable energy is not restricted to the coastline. It's not restricted to one particular area. This plan and every other plan of the People's Progressive Party, when we take office after the March 2nd election, is to benefit every single Guyanese, regardless of where you are, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of your race, regardless of your religion, regardless of your gender. The PPP has been a true national party where all our programs, projects, and initiatives are geared towards empowering Guyanese, all Guyanese. So that's, and like I said, it's just, I'm going to do generally in broad areas. So that's for electricity. Utilizing our resources in a sustainable manner to create jobs and income for all. And I just want to say, if you visit the People's Progressive Party Facebook page, you visit my Facebook page, and it's being widely circulated, you will be able to access the excerpts from the PPP Manifesto online, where you can go through the broad headings and have an idea of what are our general plans for the country when we assume office after the March 2nd elections, which focused on issues like I mentioned before, ICT and so forth. So one of the things that the PPP intend to do is to properly manage the resources. We see what the coalition has been doing. We see what is happening in our country, where all they do, they take the state resources and they use it to benefit themselves and the small cabal, their cronies, where friends and families and those who are willing to pay a bribe are the ones benefiting. We intend to use the resources of this country to benefit every single Guyanese, whether you're poor, whether you're a middle class, whether you're rich. Because the resources of Guyana belong to the people of Guyana. Doesn't belong to anybody, one person, any one person or one group. It belongs to every single Guyanese. In the area of ICT, we intend to connect every single Guyanese to the future, where you're going to have access to internet and other forms of ICT connectivity and benefits in your community at the level of the schools. Every single Guyanese will benefit. So on the ICT, if I can brush this quickly, because this is quite an interesting one. Providing schools with appropriate equipment and software, reforming schools' curricula for the development of ICT proficiencies, providing incentives for training in ICT, providing community-based training for the use of computers, establishing an international institute of technology in Guyana. We had started under the One Laptop per Family initiative, where communities were being trained to use computers. the state, the government was providing computers to individuals, and we were creating hubs where our people who don't have access to financing and other resources to go to a computer training or to have a computer of their own, the state, under the People's Progressive Party, was providing you with a computer and provide training where we created hubs across the country. So the idea is really to create a better quality of life for our people. And what do we mean when we say create a better quality of life for our people? We want to do that not just by creating employment and ensuring that you have greater access to financing, whether through the bank or through employment, but also to focus heavily on the social services, how we can improve the social services so that our people can benefit from quality health care, affordable housing, enhance and improve quality of water, and a whole host of things. So, enhance health services for our people. Let me just go, I want to go through these before I have maybe another few minutes, but I want to go through these quickly. So expand primary health care and preventative medicine, upgrade health facilities across the country, including expansion of diagnostic services such as CT scan, ultrasound, and others in hospitals across the region. So not just Georgetown Hospital, you don't have to travel to Georgetown to get a CT scan and so forth. Our plan is to ensure that you have access to those services in your own area, maybe in your region where there is, like the Eskimo Coast, you have two major hospitals to ensure that both hospitals are equipped to do some of these tests and so forth. Expand the range of medical personnel, including doctors, postgraduate specialists, nurses, pharmacists, etc., etc. Implement a performance management system that measures performance in health contracts, services, agreements to foster greater accountability. Expand tertiary healthcare, including partnerships with the private sector. Provide generous tax incentives for private health care delivery providers, and the list goes on. Providing the affordable housing. Create 10,000 house lots annually. We did it before under Dr. Irfan Ali and ministers before him, and we're going to do it again. We are going to do it again, and we want to promise you that this is going to get rolling as soon as the PPP assume office after the March 2nd elections, where housing will again, we will ensure that people have access to affordable housing. I spoke about reversing VAT on building material. We will invest in support infrastructure in existing housing schemes, promote home ownership, particularly among youths and young professionals through tax and other incentives. The PP did that before, and we're going to do it again. With regards to education, we have a whole host of programs and initiatives, including provide free education at the University of Guyana within 5 years. Enhance attention to our children with special education needs, providing generous incentives for private education providers from primary to tertiary level, provide 20,000 scholarships online, and those will benefit particularly our brothers and sisters in the far-flung areas and also the people on the coast. We will improve the access to water. A lot of you will notice that the number of days that you are going without water, whether for hours, whether for the entire day, whether for weeks, we know what is happening. We'll also focus on issues of crime and safer communities. We see what is happening in our country. I don't think I need to elaborate more on crime and the state of affairs in our country, the high level of crime, and how our people are living in fear on a daily basis because criminal elements are allowed to roam our streets and to terrorize our people almost daily. We have issues of focusing on empowering women and taking care of children and vulnerable groups, mainstreaming youths in national life. And one of the things that Dr. Jagdio spoke about yesterday is the fact that one of our commitment to the people of this country is to establish a presidential advisory council. And I will speak more about that when we examine the issue of youth under our manifesto. But this is where our young people will have an opportunity to be part and parcel of the decision making in our country, where they'll be able to fit in, to provide, to present ideas to no less a person than the president and his team of ministers. So you will see that as the establishment of a presidential youth advisory council, where they will advise the president on initiatives and programs that will benefit them. We'll create jobs for them, we'll upgrade sport facilities, and a whole host of things. Of course, our workers, our public servants and other workers, we will focus on their benefits for them to ensure that the Ministry of Labor is re-established so that you can have your concerns and your issues, you can go there and you can have them addressed. Not forgetting, and I keep talking about our brothers and sisters in the hinterland areas, regional growth and job plans. And what we intend to do is to do things differently, where we intend to create individual plans to address the needs of individual regions of our country. So Region 1, Region 2, right up to Region 10, because a blanket plan for regional development may not be the right thing because of the fact that each region have different needs and their priorities are different. So there will be regional plans to deal with those regions. We have issues of local governance, partnership with civil society, where civil society will have a role to play, how we will bring in the diaspora to be part of this, and of course, constitutional reform will also be a major pillar of the next 5 years of the PPPC's government. And of course, issues of accountability and you being able to hold your government accountable will also be part. In terms of oil and gas, quickly I want to brush this because I'm seeing the operator telling me that I'm almost out of time. We will create a framework for proper management of the oil and gas resources. What we have now is nothing. There is no local content policy. There is no proper systems in place to manage oil resources and the benefits that are supposed to be derived from it. There is no transparency and accountability. They try to hide, the Granger administration tried to hide the $18 billion signing bonus, the $18 million signing bonus, sorry. They signed lopsided contracts, 1% and 2% royalties, and they're all about the place. It's hopscotch, as Dr. Ali said, with regards to management of oil and gas industry. And most importantly, we intend to secure the benefits of the oil industry for all Guyanese. And there will be a number of things that will be put in place to ensure that politicians any attempt by a politician or any public official to squander any money from the oil and gas and any other sector, there will be legislation in place to ensure that they are held accountable and they are punished according to law for their actions. And one of the things before I close I want to say is that the intention is really to use the resources from the oil and gas sector also to invest in other sectors. What we have now is that everything is about oil for the Granger administration. Nothing for agriculture, nothing for the mining sector, nothing for forestry. They're focusing and they're counting on the oil money. We intend to use the oil resources also to reinvest and reinvigorate and rejuvenate the other sectors so that we have an economy that is diverse, that can withstand pressure if oil prices fall, our agriculture sector, our mining sector, and other sectors can cushion our economy. So I'm out of time actually, not almost out of time. I give you a quick rundown of what our manifesto will look like. And from next week, what I will do, I'll try to spend more time so that we can address individual areas in our manifesto, in our plan for prosperity for every single Guyanese. We have a track record. The PPP, if you look, maybe over 90% of our manifesto would have been implemented for every single PPPC government. The same cannot be said for this coalition. And we intend to return to power after the 2nd of March, and we intend to build Guyana for you, your children, and for many future generations to come. I remind you, on March 2nd, do the right thing. Vote wise, vote with your conscience, and vote for the People's Progressive Party. That's the party that will take you into the future and to ensure that you progress as a people. Until next week, thanks for watching and have a good rest of the evening. Bye for now.